Why you wouldn't survive a day in Shaka Zulu's army. The sun has just cracked the horizon and you're forced to run. It's not on a track, but over 20 miles of thorny, rough terrain, and you're doing it barefoot. This isn't some special forces test. It's your daily warm-up. That's just the beginning. This was the brutal reality created by one of history's most brilliant and terrifying military minds, Shaka, king of the Zulus. In the early 1800s, he transformed a small clan into the most powerful force in southern Africa. And he didn't do it with diplomacy. He did it by creating a human weapon army so disciplined, so physically tough, and so utterly ruthless that it rewrote the rules of warfare on the continent. Before Shaka, warfare in the region was often a ritualized, low-casualty affair. It was a system of limited conflict, but Shaka saw this as inefficient. His early life was marked by exile and humiliation, fueling a burning ambition for absolute victory. To get it, he had to break his men down and rebuild them from the ground up, turning farmers and herders into the deadliest fighting force Africa had ever seen. So, let's put you in their sandals. Oh wait, you don't get any. Forget your modern life, your comfort, your rights. You've just been drafted. Your first day has begun, and with it, a series of trials designed to strip away your former self. Failure at any stage didn't mean you got to go home. It could mean a swift, brutal, and public death. Welcome to the gauntlet. The first thing taken from you is your protection from the ground. An order is given. Throw away your sandals. To Shaka, sandals were a sign of weakness, something that slowed you down. Your feet, soft and pampered, are now bare. And then you run. This isn't a jog in the park. You're sent into the South African bush, a beautiful but hostile landscape. The path is a nightmare of jagged rocks and needle-like acacia thorns. The initial shock is overwhelming. Every step is agony. You see veteran warriors moving around you, their feet scarred into thick, leathery pads, their strides effortless. They don't run on the terrain, they conquer it. You, however, are stumbling and bleeding. The instinct is to slow down, but you can't. The pace is relentless. Overseers are behind you, a scary reminder that falling behind invites a beating or worse. Weakness is removed from the herd, and right now, you're the weakest. This run isn't a one-time thing. It's a daily ritual. Zulu armies were expected to cover over 20 miles, about 32 kilometers a day, and still be ready to fight. Oh, they did this under a blistering sun with very little water. Imagine running nearly a marathon over broken glass and at the finish line being thrown into a life-or-death struggle. That was the baseline. This conditioning started in childhood. Boys as young as 6 served as cadets Udibi carrying supplies for the regiments. They were apprentices in hardship, learning to endure hunger, thirst, and exhaustion. They watched men die for the slightest mistake. By the time they enlisted, their bodies and minds were already being molded. Your modern body would break down within hours. Your feet would be a shredded, bloody mess. Dehydration would set in fast. Your muscles would seize up, and this is just the warm-up. For the vast majority of us, this first trial would be impossible. We wouldn't just fail. We'd be physically shattered long before the sun hit its peak. Let's say, against all odds, your body hasn't quit. You stumble back to the military crawl, or umuzi, your spirit hanging by a thread. You survived the physical trial. Now you face something worse, the breaking of your will. Life in Shaka's army was governed by absolute iron-fisted discipline. And the central pillar of this system was fear. It's not just fear of the enemy, but the immediate gut-wrenching fear of your own king. Shaka created an aura of terrifying presence, wandering his regiments, scanning for any sign of weakness. A moment's hesitation in a drill, a flinch during training, a complaint about rations, any could earn you a death sentence. Punishments were public spectacles, lessons carved into the memory of all who watched. While some accounts speak of impalement, this may be an exaggeration, but executions for cowardice or failure were brutally real. The goal was to create such terror that a warrior would rather face any enemy than the king's wrath. Now put yourself there, exhausted, muscles screaming. The king's gaze sweeps over you. Your instinct is to shrink away, but that could be seen as weakness. You must project unshakable strength even as you're falling apart. It's a constant performance where one wrong move means death. This terror was also collective. An entire regiment could be punished for the failure of a few. While stories of Shaka slaughtering the families of defeated warriors are likely exaggerations, the principle of collective responsibility was very real and brutally enforced. This created an unthinkable choice. In front of you, the enemy. Behind you, the certainty of execution if you retreat. The only way to survive was to push forward and kill with a ferocity born of desperation. The army's social structure was a powerful tool of control. Young men were separated into age-based regiments, amabuto, living and training together, separate from society. This severed family ties, replacing them with intense loyalty to the regiment, and above all, to Shaka. Your comrades became your only family. Shaka also controlled their right to marry. Warriors were forbidden from marrying until they had proven themselves over years of service and were granted permission by the king himself. The right to a family became the ultimate reward earned through blood and obedience. For the modern mind, this psychological environment would be torture, constant fear, the arbitrary punishment, the complete control of your will. It was a pressure cooker designed to boil away everything but blind loyalty. Surviving the physical training was one thing. Surviving this was another challenge entirely. Somehow you've endured. Your body is a canvas of scars. Your mind walled off against the terror. Now you are armed. But the weapon you're given reflects Shaka's entire philosophy of war, and it will test your very soul. Shaka saw the traditional long throwing spear, the assegai, as a tool of cowardice, allowing warriors to fight from a safe distance. He ordered it replaced with the ikawa. The ikawa was a short, broad-bladed stabbing spear designed for one purpose: to be thrust into a human body at close range. Its name is said to echo the sucking sound it made when pulled from a wound. To wield it was to accept a new, horribly intimate form of violence. To go with the ikawa, you get the isilangu, a large, heavy shield made of cowhide. It was a defensive tool, but in Shaka's hands it was also an offensive weapon. You would be taught to advance, hook your shield onto your opponent's, pull it aside to expose his torso, and then lunge, driving the ikawa deep into his side. Stab, twist, pull. This was the rhythm of Zulu combat. This doctrine was terrifying for their enemies. They would hurl their spears only to see them thud harmlessly into the wall of advancing Zulu shields. Before they knew it, that wall was on them, and the methodical work of the ikawa began. But the real test for you isn't the technique. It's the psychological leap required. You must unlearn the instinct that tells you to keep your distance. You must seek the crush of bodies, the spray of blood, the scream of a man you've just disemboweled. And there was no room for mercy. Shaka's rule was total war, which meant total annihilation, Enemy combatants were to be killed, not taken prisoner. This was cold strategy. A dead enemy was no longer a threat. After a battle, the Zulu army would sweep through conquered lands, seizing cattle and grain and absorbing women and children into the kingdom. You are now being asked not just to kill, but to participate in systematic slaughter. A warrior's first kill was a rite of passage, a prerequisite for earning the right to marry. Could you do it? Could you hook your shield, open your opponent, and drive that blade home again and again, knowing that surrender was not an option for them, and mercy was not an option for you? This is the point where survival means becoming a killer in the most brutal sense imaginable, a transformation that would likely destroy what we recognize as ourselves. You've passed the trials of body, mind, and soul. You are a weapon. Now you take your place in the great engine of destruction, the Impondo Zancomo, or buffalo horns formation. From a distance, it looked like a living creature. You are a single cell inside its body. The formation had 3 parts. The center was the Isafuba, or the chest made of the most experienced regiments. Their job was to meet the enemy head-on and pin them in place. If you're a veteran, this is your spot, the ground vibrating with the rhythmic stomp of thousands of bare feet. Flanking the chest were the Izimpondo, the horns made of the youngest, fastest warriors. As the chest engaged, the horns would sprint out to the sides, silent and deadly, to encircle the enemy and cut off all retreat. This is likely your position as a new recruit. Your heart pounds from fear and exertion. You can hear the clash of arms as the chest makes contact, but you can't stop. You must keep running to close the trap. Behind it all in reserve was the Umuva, or the loins. These were seasoned veterans held back to reinforce a struggling section or deliver the final crushing blow to the trapped enemy. From your spot inside a horn, you complete the flanking maneuver. The trap is sprung. The enemy is swallowed whole. Now the circle tightens. It's no longer a battle. It's a mass execution. Space is so tight you can barely move. The ground becomes slick with blood. You are no longer an individual. You're an extension of the formation. And the formation is an extension of Shaka's will. To break from it is to die. For an enemy, seeing the horns close in was to know your end had come. For a modern person placed within it, the sensory overload, claustrophobia, and overwhelming violence would be paralyzing. You are a cog in a perfectly designed killing machine. This final trial isn't about your strength or will. It's about your complete assimilation into a system of annihilation. So, could you have survived a single day? Let's be honest, the answer's no. Your day would have likely ended long before you saw a battlefield. Your soft feet would have been shredded on the thorns and rocks within the first mile. Incapacitated, you'd be pointed out as weak and likely clubbed to death. Or maybe you survived the run. Could you have handled the psychological trial? The constant high-anxiety threat of arbitrary punishment would have shattered a modern mind conditioned to expect rights and due process. You would have broken, and you would have been disposed of. But what if you were a true outlier? Then you'd be handed the Aikawa and told to kill without hesitation, to become a participant in total war. Could your conscience have survived that? For many, this moral barrier would be the highest. Even if you survived it all and took your place in the buffalo horns, your chances of surviving the meat grinder of close-quarters combat would be slim. Many brave, hardened Zulu warriors died in these clashes. What chance would a novice truly have? The truth is, you wouldn't survive because you are a product of a different world. Shaka's warriors were made, not born. They were honed into living weapons, perfectly adapted to the brutal world Shaka had created. We are not. The military machine Shaka built was terrifyingly effective. In just over a decade, he transformed southern Africa in a period of unprecedented chaos known as the Mafikine, or the Crushing. He built a vast empire on fear, discipline, and tactical brilliance. His methods were the pinnacle of Iron Age warfare. His system was so effective that it took the British Empire with its rifles and cannons to finally defeat it decades after his death. Even then, at the Battle of Isandlwana, Zulu regiments inflicted one of the most humiliating defeats in British colonial history, a testament to the enduring power of Shaka's creation. Shaka Zulu was a military genius and a tyrant who unleashed unimaginable suffering. He created a society dedicated to war, where a man's worth was measured by his capacity for violence. To survive in his army wasn't just to be strong, it was to be remade in his image. It required a toughness of body, mind, and soul that is for us today almost impossible to comprehend. And that is why you and I and almost anyone alive today would never have survived that first grueling day.